I think we're live now. A few technical difficulties this morning, but I think we're getting it together here. So if I don't lose my internet, it's kind of going in and out. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming this morning. Yay!
Happy birthday!
Yeah, happy birthday.
Thank you.
39?
Yep.
39 forever.
I'm not sure that was such a good year. I don't know about 39. This one's fine. Good morning, Sam. We're alive.
Did she hear us?
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
We hear
Yes.
you.
Hello.
I can't hear you.
Uh-oh.
Oh, there you are. Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay.
And we're live, but not really officially started yet. We're just kind of like, hey, we made it.
Okay. All right. Oh, God. You gotta love computers, you know? They're awesome for so many things, and yet then other times they're the most frustrating thing in the world. Oh, okay. So I'm sorry I'm looking a little orange. I don't know what's up with that. Maybe it's just because my background is orange. I don't know. All right. Let's see here. Okay, so everything looks different to me because I'm not hosting. Okay, so you guys are live. Awesome. All right. So welcome, everybody. Am I on a delay? Are you hearing me clearly?
I hear you clearly.
I hear you fine.
All right, cool. All right. I just see Sandy on the screen. Do you have Sandy white boxed? Or do you have her, like, you clicked on her? Okay. Well, okay, so if you're out there hanging out on the event page, let us know if everything looks good and sounds good and all that kind of thing. I don't know. I'm just completely lost my train of thought this morning because of this whole technical thing. So I just want to welcome everybody. Welcome to our Saturday Morning Mastermind. And if you're brand new here, today is just kind of a little goofy this morning because of technical difficulties and whatnot. But we are studying the book, what is this called? How to Win Friends and Influence People in the Digital Age by Dale Carnegie. We've been studying this book now for a little while. And but before we get into the book, I'm just going to have everybody introduce themselves. And for those of you who are watching us live, go ahead and introduce yourself on our event page and tell us where you're hanging out from in the world. And then we'll get this thing going here in just a moment after everybody kind of says who they are. So whoever wants to jump out, go ahead.
Good morning. This is Catherine Clement out here in Boulder, Colorado, and it's a bright, clear morning. We got quite a bit of snow yesterday, so we'll do a little shoveling today. It looks like it's going to be a beautiful one. So thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Sandy Root here in sunny Miami. It was a strange first holiday season here because I'm used to it being cold and it didn't feel like the holidays so much, but I'm enjoying, and I'll be back in cold New York for a bit next week, but happy to discuss today.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dan Smith. I'm in Boise, Idaho, and we've kind of had above average temperatures here lately, but all of a sudden it's going to be winter again here. So anyways, back to the cold. So welcome to the call this morning.
Oh, sorry. I tell you, my brain is not working right this morning. Okay, so let me jump over to the page real quick and just welcome everybody who is commenting on the page. Welcome, Mado. Welcome, Fabiana. See who else jumped on here and said they were coming. I don't know if Danielle's going to be watching in the background or not, but she says she's not feeling so great today. She's got a nasty headache, so I hope you feel better, Danielle, and just wanted to also send our sympathies out to Jason. He had to attend a funeral this morning, and I hope that just hope to send some comforting energy out to him and his family and friends. I'm not sure who it is that passed away, but I just wanted to let you know we're thinking about you, Jason. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started in our book. This, let's see here, last week, let me get back to where I can see everybody here. Okay, there we go, that's better. Last week we finished up the section that was called, let me get back to the beginning of that section. Okay, 6 ways to make a lasting impression. We talked about some 6 different ways that you can start connecting with people and really begin to help yourself stand out on the internet or in your interpersonal communications with people in your network, or in your business, whatever it happens to be that you're trying to do, and just be able to communicate better and connect with people better and have them remember you, right? And so this week, or this next section, which is part 3, is how to merit and maintain other people's trust. So now that you've kind of gotten people's attention, if you will, let's make sure that we keep their attention and that we don't end up turning them away or turning them off by what we do online. And so this first section is about avoiding arguments. And for me, arguing is one of the most, I don't know if you want to call it the most annoying things, but it's one of the things that really bothers me. When I see people arguing, or I hear people arguing, it really makes me feel ill, because I feel like it's like one of the least effective methods for communicating with people. And I don't know about you guys, but there's been multiple times where I see people arguing online, and it gets into this heated debate, and everybody's like mad at each other, and they're like throwing these nasty remarks to one another, and I'm just like, gosh, who started this, and why are you even participating? It's one of those things that just, I don't get it. I just have never understood it. And of course I think that part of that is probably because I grew up with a lot of argument with my parents. They argued a lot, and so that's something that I just now, I'm not saying I have never been in an argument. I think we all have at least once, right? If not more than once. And but it's one of those things that I just try and avoid it if I can possibly avoid it, because it doesn't make you look good, and it's not very effective communication. And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. But what do you guys think about arguing, particularly if we're talking about online? What do you think about that?
I mean, in my experience, just like you said, you see posts where people are getting into this heat, and I find that it pushes people away. It's just not a good energy to be in, and it's like this cycle that continues and continues and seems to get nowhere, rather than maybe taking a step back and taking a few moments to actually bring up a response that's not coming from anger, but from more of a place of like, this is my opinion and I'm just sharing this, but not lashing back at others, because then the energy never gets resolved. It's just like this ball of anger just keeps perpetuating. And actually, when you were talking, I thought of my mom when I was staying with her before I moved here for a couple weeks, and we were arguing for a couple days, and I realized at one point I just had to stop and just accept her and the way she is, and that changed everything. After that, we were able to really get along and accept each other the way we are and our differences, rather than just keep arguing. I was like, this is getting nowhere. We're both miserable and walking around, and it affects the health so much when we're in this anger state. Your heart is pumping, you can't breathe right, and I realized that my body was feeling affected from it too, so I just took a step back and really, I think that's important, not to just lash out immediately, because when we're in that anger, it's easy to just explode, but really take some breaths, step back, get a better view of the situation in their view, maybe where they're coming from, and then you can come at it in a better way. So, yeah, that's my thoughts for now.
I'll go ahead and jump out. Yeah, I've never enjoyed arguing. I'm more of a peacemaker, but you know, I ran a painting company for 26 years, and you know, with employees, lots of employees over the years, and between employees, between home builders that I worked with, and the customers, you know, it was not uncommon for there to be an argument, you know. So always trying to find that middle ground, you know, how can I meet your needs and still get my needs met at the same time, you know, and find that middle ground, and you know, because really when you butt heads, just like you said, Sandy, I mean, you feel it in your entire physiology, your body feels it, you know, and I just personally, I don't enjoy that type of tension. You know, I'm much more comfortable with peace between people. So, anyways, yeah, just looking for that middle ground, trying to figure out how to smooth things over, meet your customers' needs. And you know, the funny thing about the online space is when you write something, people can't always discern what you really mean by what you write, you know, and also find that people say things or write things with really an angry attitude. They would never say that to your face necessarily, but they feel the freedom that they can write some really pretty nasty things on the internet and get away with it. So, anyways, yeah, just always trying to find that middle ground to where both people part ways, and both people feel that they've had their needs met, and you know, just to smooth things over in that way. So I'll turn it over to you, Catherine.
Yeah, I've never been one big on arguing. You know, I'm sure as many of us have experienced in the past, as you know, as a child, when voices got raised, things got ugly. So I don't like loud voices, and I don't like arguing. It doesn't get anywhere. With that being said, though, I have to say I have to make a confession almost because just the other day I was. You know, sometimes when I'm hurting, I play a video game to kind of distract me off of it. When I can't use my brain for anything useful, it seems I can just, you know, play a video game. And this person was, I was just on there trying to relax and like unstress myself, and this person was publicly belittling me, you know, in like the public chat about the way I played and my gear wasn't good enough and all this. And for the first time in my life, I mean, I don't think I have ever cussed anybody in my life, but this person got every cussing that I never did to anybody. They got it that day. Like I just totally went off on this person for being so, you know, belittling, and it was the I got off the computer. I was like, oh my god, I can't even believe I did that, and I never would have done it in person, Dan, never ever ever, um, because I just, you know, I just would never speak to anybody like that, but because there was this computer between us, you know. Now granted, you know, that person is used to it because they instigate these kind of things all the time, and I fell right into that trap. But it was it was freeing in a way, you know, but it was traumatizing. It was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that in another way, and it's it's real easy, like you said, Dan. Online, people can't understand it. They don't get the inflection through the words, and so it's very easy to be misunderstood with what you're saying online. It's it's a little tricky, I think, because you're trying to be yourself. You know, there's certain posts that sometimes I just won't. post, even though I might find the post interesting or whatever, I won't post it because I think it'll be too controversial. I mean, I really, it's a sort of a fine line to walk um, when you're in the public eye, so to speak, where you don't want to be misunderstood. You know, you don't want to instigate arguments with certain posts. Some people say in business, you know, never speak about politics or religion. But now some platforms it's very easy to stay away from those topics. But on some things, especially like Facebook, where it's a little bit more personal and stuff, sometimes those views sort of come out. And when people are joining us and not our business, so to speak, you know, sometimes they want to know where you stand on certain things. So you kind of have to decide how much of yourself you're going to share, what you're going to not talk about, you know, what you're going to add fuel to. Sometimes I'll put things up that I'm not trying to add fuel to a fire, so to speak, but I do want to sort of shine some light on that area so that people at least know that some things are, you know, happening, and they can send some light to it and at least know that, you know, it needs help. You know, I like to sometimes know to send help to things, and so kind of rambling at this point, you guys. Please, somebody else come in here.
That's okay. I was just like making some notes, and I was kind of looking down, so I didn't want you to think that I wasn't, you know, paying attention to what you were talking about. But, you know, I agree with you. I think there is that kind of fine line where you've got to, you know, because people want to know who you are and what you're about, so you've got to kind of share your own opinions about things, but yet at the same time, you know how sometimes the way that we are in our family life and with our very, very closest family, we're a little bit more opinionated about things, or maybe even a lot more opinionated about things than what we might be just in public in general, or even around people that aren't our closest family. And you know, in my, you know, what I have tried to do is that if I wouldn't say it to, you know, a friend or somebody out in public, I don't post it online. If, you know, there are things that I'll say to my husband or I'll say to my son that I'm very opinionated about, but I would not ever say that in public in any other forum, so I wouldn't put it online. And you know, so that's my thought on it, is that I think that there's that yeah, you do want to put out some things online that you share opinions with, you know, particularly, you know, if you're real supportive of a particular cause, or you know, something that you're trying to make a change in the world, or even a change in your community or something like that, because you do want to connect with and you know, motivate other people who are interested in those same things. And so, of course, you want to be, you know, obvious about the fact that you're a part of that, and that you want other people and you want to connect with other people who are part of that too. So, I mean, I completely agree with you on that side of it, and that's kind of how I've dealt with that part of it. You know, because there's a lot of things that I'm opinionated about, but I wouldn't necessarily show them online, because you know, I think we're all working on ourselves and the becoming the best version of ourselves that we can possibly be. And I think even though we might say something in the privacy of our own home, that may not be something that we want to hold true to out in the rest of the world. It may be something that we're working on getting better at, you know, not flying off the handle over certain things. You know what I'm saying? So what do you guys think? Dan, Sandy?
I don't see Sandy, so I'll jump out. I'm not sure if she's there or not, but yeah, you know, I just got these different thoughts going through my mind, and ask myself different questions here, just I'll kind of apply it to some things that I was reading in my own personal reading this morning, you know. But you know, some of the things that some of the mentors that I listen to are talking about is to choose your audience, to identify the audience that you're going after. If you know, I mean, if you're using the internet for sales, which I believe we're all doing because we're all based, you know, home-based business owners, then to choose the audience that you go after. And some of the people say to what's the word that I'm looking for? I can't think of the word. It's not coming to my mind. Galvanize is what comes to my mind, but I'm not sure if that's the word that I'm really looking for. But anyway, in some senses, people say, I mean, I'm just going to say it like it is: piss people off, you know, make them angry, to separate your list, you know, and like Howard Stern, you know, people love him, so they listen to him because they love him. Other people hate him, but they listen to him because they want to see what he says. And so, where's that fine line between you know, hacking off your list, so to speak, and getting rid of some people, and doing that on purpose with a sense of purpose, and then zeroing in, you know, because you're drawing in an audience to you of people who actually do identify with you, you know. And I got to admit, I'm extremely opinionated in some areas. Other areas, I could care less, and you know, and all the time I'm around people who may be arguing amongst themselves, and I've got strong opinions about it, but I don't say anything because I don't see any need for me to jump into the argument, because I'm not going to change anybody's mind anyway, and I'm not going to change my mind because I am highly opinionated in certain areas, you know, and so I hold real strong views in some different areas. But honestly, what am I going to accomplish? You know, last weekend, kind of a pre-Christmas deal, my wife and I actually went up to about an hour, a little over an hour outside of the hometown here, up into the woods, you know, and I've got an aunt and an uncle and a cousin that lives up there, real close to each other, right by each other, and we was all having dinner, and I've got a cousin that doesn't share some of the views that I hold, and him and my wife was getting into it. I finally had to stop her and said, hey, you know, mellow out, you know, because you're not going to change his mind. He's not going to change your mind. So why go there, you know? So anyway, I guess it's, you know, choosing your battles, and you know, we're always going to have enemies in some way. You know, that's just the way that it is, and to choose the enemies that you know, really, what's worth fighting over? When you really come down to it, to choose the battles that you're willing to fight. Other battles, just let them go by. You know, I mean, why go there? Why even screw around with it? You know, when all it's going to do is, like we said earlier, like Sandy was talking about, it messes up your physiology. You feel it in your body. You feel that tension, that anger, and you know, I mean, just let it ride and choose the battles that you're willing to fight. And some battles just aren't worth going there, in my humble opinion. So, anyways, and now I'm just rambling. I'll turn it over to somebody else.
Well, I agree. I really try to choose my battles, and I have this, talking about online, I have this fellow that every once in a while shows up on my page to what I would term troll me, because he comes in and to me it seems very obvious that he's looking for that argument, and some of the comments that he makes, um, you know, it's like he's got a stick and he's trying to poke me or something. But I find that actually humor works really well to try to decompress some of those situations. Um, First of all, if you can just acknowledge and respect their comment, even if you don't agree with it, you can at least acknowledge and respect their opinion about it. And then if you can just, for instance, one time he was going on, and I didn't engage with him, but somebody else, like one of my friends, sort of engaged on my behalf or something, I don't know, and they were kind of going back and forth, and then I went over. It reminded me, if what's the name of that movie? Princess Bride. I don't know if you guys remember the movie Princess Bride, but there's this scene where these two guys are um, what's that called? Dueling. Not dueling, that's with guns. This is with fencing. They're fencing, and they've, it's swords, and they're saying, they're jabbing at each other with words as well as with swords, but it's all very sort of playful, and it reminded me of that scene, so I jumped over to YouTube and got that scene and then brought it over and put it in there. And then they were both laughing, and so I think humor is a really good way to decompress a situation. Sometimes, people can attack you online, and you kind of have to figure out how you're going to respond to it. And this chapter does a real good job, gives some good examples of pointing out how, um, jumping into the fray and arguing, like you said, Dan, you're not going to change their mind. They're not going to change your mind. So you can definitely get more bees with honey or flowers or whatever than you can, sending in the dogs. So what do you think, Sandy? I know you're good at handling. You get a lot of comments on your stuff.
Yeah, when you were talking about those people with the sticks that come on, I remember to post that I posted about gratitude, like if you're complaining, you're not being grateful. If you're angry, you're not being grateful. And this guy, I mean, he just came out of nowhere. I didn't know who he was, or I don't remember him ever commenting on my stuff, but he was pretty angry about it. He's like, you can't just be this happy-go-lucky, not grateful for the bad stuff too. And just the way it came out, it sort of felt like anger coming towards me. So like you said, humor, and just, I still was myself. I put smiley faces in my comment back and my sunny faces that I like to stick on. And, I think it's important to just look at their viewpoint, because someone reading something that you have on the internet, it can interpret it in a completely different way than you and someone else interprets it. So I said, oh, okay, so he's interpreting in this way where, he's seeing that you can be grateful for the bad stuff. You can be grateful when you're angry. You can be grateful when you're complaining. So I said, yeah, I see your viewpoint too. And so I really just try to understand where they're coming from. Sometimes it's easy when you get a comment that stirs something inside of you to just want to write back like something in an argumentative way. But I took it. I just didn't respond right away and said, how can I respond to this in a good way? And then he wrote back, thank you, and for acknowledging my comment. And not coming back in that argumentative fashion. And maybe he wasn't coming at me in an argumentative way, and I took it that way. So it's always, trying to see where someone else is coming from too. And we're all reacting in different ways to different things. And there was something when you were talking, Samantha, that I thought of. Oh, we were talking about, if we're posting something online that maybe is more how we're acting in our personal life. I find that, not doing that, but then if I had something going on in my personal life that, this might be off topic a little bit, but that if I have overcome something in my personal life, like, so let's say, oh, I've been arguing with this family member forever, and we resolve the issues. Like, if I share that online after I've grown out of something, then I get a great response. If it's coming from my own insight and my personal knowledge of my perception of it, it gets a great response, because people know that you're human. People know that you go through things, you're growing, and you're sharing it, rather than, I think a lot of people online put a fake front up too, like they're making all this money and they're this tough guy, but then if you really talk to them, they're like this, they're not growing, and they're just putting up a front online. So it always goes back to being genuine. And that's my thoughts for now.
I think that's a great point, Sandy. One of my mentors, from a while back, one of the things that he suggested was that, not to put your problems out that you're facing right now or that you're going through right now, but to put out the story of you overcoming them after, after you have experienced that thing, because you can actually inspire people who are going through the exact same thing that you just went through. And so I think that's a great point to, it is good to share what you went through and how you overcame it, because people are like, oh, okay, well, if she can do it, I can do it, or that sort of thing. And excuse me. But I had a few other thoughts that I was sitting here thinking about when you guys were all talking. Let's see what I was just saying. Oh, and you were talking about, being aware of what someone else is, what they may be experiencing, or they may see what you say or post, or what someone else says or posts from their own perspective. We never know what it is that they're actually experiencing with that, because, of course, we all see things differently, and you never know. I mean, you may post something that you have a completely positive attitude about, and you're putting out all this positive energy, but because of where they are in their life, in their situation, in their emotional state, they could see it completely different just because of their perspective. And I think that that's super powerful for, like you were saying, is to just kind of take a moment, and not just instantly respond, assuming that you know what they're thinking, and taking that time to think of a positive way to respond to them so that you can acknowledge them, and then start a more healthy conversation there. I think that's super important, because I think one of the biggest traps that new people who are online fall into is that they just automatically react to people, and they get offended really easily, and then they jump into that argument. They get sucked into it, like you guys are kind of saying, that you just end up getting sucked in. And then all of a sudden, before you realize that you're in the middle of this super heated discussion, you're like, God, how did I end up here? I mean, I know we've had that experience. One time I started a conversation with a leader in a company that I was with, and I don't even remember what the beginning of the conversation was, but we got to talking for a little bit, and I thought that we were just having a friendly conversation. Well, all of a sudden, this other person messaged me like, I'm not going to argue with you anymore, and I'm done with this conversation. And I was like, what? I didn't even realize we were arguing. I thought we were just having a discussion, But it's funny, because when you're online and you're just typing and it's just words, it's it's hard to understand what your inflections are. I mean, when we're face to face and we're talking person to person, you can hear the emotions, and you can hear the inflections on the words, and you can see a person's face and their facial expressions and their body movements. It's easier to really interpret what they mean by that, versus when it's just words, you just aren't sure, and so then we tend to just automatically put our own meaning on those words, and then who knows where it can go from there. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing that I think is the biggest thing to be aware of. It's like, like Sandy was saying, if somebody says something negative on your post, is to, just take a minute and think about, okay, it's possible that this person is seeing something from a different perspective that I'm not, and they're interpreting it in a different way. How can I respond in a positive method, and then turn that conversation into something positive, and that can be real helpful. Now then, there's other situations where there are people like what Catherine was talking about, who just troll around looking to start arguments because of the place that they are in their emotional state, or their personal lives, or whatever. They're just out there looking to instigate something, and it doesn't matter what you say or who you say it to or what you're talking about or whatever. They're just looking for a fight. And the best thing that you can do with them is just either just make, like what Sandy was talking about, is to make, or Catherine, you were talking about using humor, is just kind of make a humorous comment and make sure that whatever you say is positive, and sometimes that will just diffuse it, or they'll realize they're not going to get any argument out of you, and they'll just go away. And then, of course, if it's super, super negative, you can always just delete the comment. But one thing I wanted to do real quick is I actually wanted to read what Danielle put on our pre-mastermind discussion, because she kind of talked a little bit about what she does when people say negative things. And she also mentioned one of the stories in this chapter that she really liked. So let's jump over there real quick. And let me see if I can find that discussion. Okay, here it is. Okay, so Danielle says, my favorite story in this chapter was about the Reverend Billy Graham. His influence of people in every rank and title over a long period of time was as one of the most recognizable people on earth in the religious arena is remarkable. 7 U.S. presidents and virtually every religious leader in the Western world, especially at the time when religion was at a turning point in the 1950s. 3 of his hardest critics, which were premier columnists Henry Lucy, Andre Laguerre, I don't know if that's pronounced correctly or not, and lastly William Connor, who mockingly named him Hollywood's version of John the Baptist, completely unprepared for his effect on the city. Outstanding is he filled the stadium night after night with crowds of 11,000 sitting and 1,000 standing, regardless of the weather. High-level people attended. She says, I most like what Connor, who flipped from being the critic to the admirer, is quoted as saying after his first meeting at a pub named Baptist Head, which he wanted to be a pun and backfire. He says, I never thought that friendliness had such a sharp cutting edge. I never thought that simplicity could cajole us sinners in so damned hard. Kugel? I think I have to look that word up. We live and learn. Okay, and then she says, Graham could have verbally attacked and fought back with all those making comments, but I love the fact that he chose the high road and by his grace and goodwill was able to win over his critics. I've learned over the years that we can most often win people over by remaining silent and listening. Many times the steam and hot air others give off evaporates quickly when we do not fuel their fire. I cannot say I've never been perfect at this, but I do believe that we can either react or respond. Many times our response, when delayed, is more effective than when we have given it thought first. I constantly remind myself when I get fired up, it is what it is. It has already happened. It cannot be taken back or reversed. Is what I am about to add going to help it or continue to make it worse? It has taken many years of flying off the handle and not considering a more peaceful way to learn this lesson. This is reestablished for me in so many ways my current personal life to remind myself, and also in my business. I have many critics that make remarks on my business posts. I choose each time to do one of 3 things. Number 1, acknowledge their opinion. Number 2, ignore their opinion and often just delete the comment because it is negative energy. Number 3, find a way to find their trust and find out the deeper reason for their feeling or opinion. And then she says, number 3 way has turned many of those people around, and with little information and conversation has turned them into a paying customer wanting and willing to trust me and my products. Love this chapter, so critical in today's world. And then that was the end of her comments. But that's so true. And of course, we've all kind of mentioned these different ways since we've been having this conversation, where she is talking about the 3 ways that she deals with negative comments, and so I think that those were just really great things to add to our conversation today. Does anyone else want to jump out and share their thoughts?
I have to say, one of the things I love about the internet is that, and that maybe this is just me, Sandy, you did a video recently about a book that you read that helped with some back pain, and one of the things, I read that book years and years and years ago, and one of the things that it talks about is how emotions affect the body, like you mentioned earlier, and especially anger and repressed anger from things that happened way, way long ago, that we didn't have the coping skills then to deal with what we do now, and and so things get blown out of proportion. There's all sorts of things, but anyway, these emotions get trapped in your body, and then they cause physical illness. And so um, yeah, you can maintain a positive attitude and you can look for the good in every situation, but at the same time, you can't deny your emotions. So one of the things I love about the internet is that if if I am feeling some anger or whatever, I can type it and then I can erase it. So at least it has been expressed. I haven't, sorry about that, I haven't like held it in and stuffed it in. I've expressed it, but I don't like actually say it to the person, which I do say it because, there's this thing called energy, so people pick up on some things anyway, but you can, the internet is just such a great way to connect with so many different people. But as you said, Sam, we don't know. I'm sure all of us on this panel and everyone listening can think of a situation where, maybe you didn't get any sleep that night, or your dog just died. So who knows what happened, but you can read something one day and interpret it in a completely different way than if you read it on another day. It really just depends on what space you're in at the time. And so sometimes when people respond to us in a way that we feel is argumentative or, demeaning or whatever it is, we have to take a moment because we don't know where they're at that day, and it may be something completely out of character, or it may be, like that person I cussed out on the game the other day probably thinks I'm like the worst person in the world. But, it's, sometimes stuff comes out at the wrong time, and not just for us, but, for other people. So sometimes you can't, there are some places you make comments that you can't delete them. So just be careful when you're commenting. I always kind of reread what I wrote because sometimes it's just my lack of being able to express myself well, too. Like I reread and make sure, how could that be interpreted in any other way than the way I mean it?
Yeah, I think that's important what you were saying. If something really is stirring up anger, and you to just type it out and then erase it. Like how sometimes it's recommended among many books to just write something down that you want to say to somebody and then burn it and let it go. And I mean, this is a little of a tangent, but you reminded me of the back pain book. For those who are curious, it's called Mind Over Back Pain. And the night I finished that book, I went to sleep with the ideas in the book in my consciousness, and I woke up in the middle of the night and remembered this anger I had, this old anger at my mom for not letting me go to school for music when I wanted to go to college. I wanted to go for guitar and viola. I played a lot of instruments in high school, and she said, that's not a real career, you can't go. And I just felt all this anger in the middle of the night about it, and I hadn't thought about it in years. And I woke up in the morning like with a significantly reduced back pain, and I was like, wow. So yeah, I think it's really important to, if you are feeling anger at something somebody posted, not to just necessarily brush it off internally. I mean, maybe you see it as just that they're in a different place, but if it really is hurting your feelings, you never know. Something somebody says online can really hurt you. Like Catherine said, just write back and then delete it and give it some time before responding to them. But yeah, get it out. Get it out. Get it out.
I think we're all just in really, you're in a learning process throughout all of life, and I mean, if you think, have the tendency to think that once you get out of high school that you got it all nailed down, or college or whatever, but I mean, I'm 60 years old, and I'm still in the process of learning, and I mean, if I live till I'm 100, I'll still be in the process of learning. And I lived with a tremendous amount of anger for a lot of years over a lot of different things. And I had extreme back pain through all those years, and neck pain, lower back pain, and it does attack your your physical body, and it lodges in your joints, and it just creates problems. And so yeah, I know what it's like to live with those pains and to deal with that anger, and something I wrote in the pre-mastermind is that a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. And I heard that years ago, and it's always stuck with me. That if you're forcing your views down somebody's throat, to the point where I mean, who's going to win the argument? The person with the biggest stick, and yeah, I mean, let's see if I can find this here real quick. Here's a biblical passage that something that has come to my mind over the years too. It says, "Make no friendship with a man given to anger, nor go with a wrathful man." And it goes on to say that you will learn his ways. That just to avoid that type of person, really. Don't associate with them necessarily, because you're going to learn their ways, and then you'll be just like them. And forcing that anger, like I said, who's got the biggest stick? I mean, if the argument's won by who has the bigger stick or who can shout the other person down, have you really won if you've shouted them down because you have a stronger voice, and you have the ability to yell louder than the other person does? You're still going to go each other's ways, and you're still going to believe the same things that you believed before. And if anything, it actually is going to drive it deeper into your consciousness, what you do believe. And so, the book, that chapter talked about finding some middle ground. How can both people have their needs met? How can you come together, and you maybe give a little bit and they give a little bit, and how you can figure out how to meld your ideas together and to work through it that way. So I'll turn it over to somebody else.
I don't think anybody ever wins an argument, Dan. I just don't think anybody ever really wins. I mean, somebody might perceive themselves as the winner, and somebody might perceive themselves as the loser, but they've both lost, I guess. Yeah. Sam's got some thoughts rolling around. I can see him.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure I covered a couple of things that in this chapter that I thought were really important. So I was kind of reviewing some of this, and one of the things in here, it was talking about. It says tension and conflict occur when you and or those with you discard the notion that others have inner wisdom that ought to be heard. And and this is something that happens a lot, I think, in in people that we're close with, or that we are family members or close friends or that sort of thing. Is that we kind of sometimes automatically just assume we know what they're going to say, particularly when you're in an argument, or maybe it's a topic that you keep coming back to in your relationships, and you just kind of get it in your head. You think you know what they're going to say, and maybe even because of how well you think you know them, you don't think that they have anything of value to add. And like Sandy was saying, is that you never know where that person is coming from, and just to remember that there's a good possibility that those other people can gain, shine some insight on something, on a topic that maybe you had never looked at it from that perspective before, and to make sure that you're taking kind of a pause and really listening to what that other person is saying before responding yourself. And I think that that's the biggest thing with arguments, is that we are responding without thinking and without listening. And when you can, truly listen to what that other person is saying and turn off your own mind chatter, because that's kind of the thing, in my thought process. And over the years, one of the biggest things that I've worked on very strongly has been, I don't want to argue with my husband. I have absolutely no interest in arguing with him because of all the arguing that my parents did. I knew that it was not going to get anywhere. And so I knew I didn't want to do that in my own relationship, but yet at the same time, when we're young, you know, early in our relationship, we think we know everything and the other person probably doesn't know anything, and we tend to, you know, argue with each other rather than really listening. And you know, and as the years have grown longer, as we've been together longer, is that I realized after those times that we have had arguments, after some of what he says kind of sinks in, that, you know, okay, he's got a lot of wisdom that I did not have. You know, I didn't know. I didn't, you know, I didn't have to automatically assume that he didn't know what he was talking about, you know. And so, you know, in recent years, I've made sure to really, you know, hold my tongue when he's talking, and turn off my own mind chatter so that it gives him more opportunity to share what it is that he has to say. And you know, and I've gained some insight in that way, and I've learned things that I probably would not have learned, you know, before. And I still have a lot of that to work on, because I'm a lot my mom's daughter, and my mom is very opinionated, and she doesn't let anyone get a word in edgewise, and I find that I do that sometimes too. My husband would probably say you do it a lot, but you know, it's one of those things that I work on, because I realize that that he has a lot of knowledge in there that that I don't have, and I can't just automatically assume that I know everything and that I know the best, and you know, and all that kind of thing. So I think if we all do the same thing, it's you know, just allowing other people to have that opinion and to have that that insight, and you know, like Sandy was saying, is that, you know, sometimes you can read something one day and then read it something another day and have a completely different perspective on it. And, you know, I've noticed that as well, and it's one reason why I like to reread books. And also I like to, you know, listen to books, because it kind of, you know, you learn something different. Even if you just change the method of you know, reading that information or absorbing that information, you can get a completely different insight into that as well. And I think that when you do the same thing when people are communicating with you, is that you can gain a different perspective that you never had before. But there's another quote here at the end that says, all of us know how to get attention, but few of us know how to get attention and respect at the same time. Set yourself apart by being the one who avoids the arguments that most people jump into with both feet. And I thought that was a good thing there at the end of this chapter, to just, you know, remind us of, particularly when we're talking about, you know, our interactions online, and how many times I've seen so many times where, you know, somebody will just jump in without having any thought process, or you think there's no thought process, and just starting or instigating an argument, or just instantly responding with some kind of, you know, argumentative back at another person, and it always ends up going south, you know, in my opinion. So it's just, you know, think about things for a little bit. You know, don't just automatically respond. Make sure that you think, and that you know, you really think your thought process through, and you respect that other person and what they're saying. So that's my final thoughts for today. What do you guys have as final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Well, oh, well, I think, you know, again, we always find ourselves walking that fine line. You have to find a way to discuss things, maybe not argue, like you were saying, Sam. You don't want to argue with your husband, but you do have to find ways to discuss things, and I'll tell you why. Um, another confession. You know, I'm married and divorced 3 times. 2 of them I don't count, and that's a whole long story, but one of them I do count. And I can absolutely tell you that one of the big reasons why that marriage failed is because I could not speak my truth. You know, I did not know how to communicate my feelings, and so it all got stuffed. And what happens when you do that is that eventually the least little thing happens and then everything comes out all at once, and it's all blown out of proportion, and it's not a good way. So we have to learn how to communicate with one another, and online is more difficult than in person. Well, I don't know. I guess it depends on the person. Some people could probably do better the other way, but just give if you read something that upsets you, or if someone makes a comment that upsets you or something, first of all, take into account where you're at that day, because as we've all said, it affects you differently on different days where you're at. So make sure that you're in the right space to respond, and then just go ahead and give that person the benefit of the doubt, even if they seem to be criticizing you or trying to instigate an argument. Give them the benefit of the doubt that they're coming from a good place in their heart, because most people usually are. You know, this arena where we're all in businesses, and we're entrepreneurs, we're trying to be outside of the box and make some dreams come true. And especially family members and friends that have known us our whole life, especially if they know us as a dreamer, that's what they see us as a dreamer. Oh yeah, you were excited about this, you were excited about that, or whatever. So sometimes when they criticize or try to give advice or something, it may seem like they're cutting us down, but they're actually, reaching out from their heart. They love us. They don't want to see us hurt. They don't want to see us fall into something. Maybe they have misunderstandings about certain types of businesses and how they work. Maybe they've had a bad experience with them. Maybe they know somebody that lost everything trying to be an entrepreneur. So most times people are truly trying to be helpful. They're coming from a place of love, or they're coming from a place of hurt themselves. So just be kind, extend that love and respect, that, treat others as you would want to be treated. That comes back to that golden rule. So thank you all for coming today. I know we're running a little late, but we got started a little late. So thank you all, and I hope everyone had a great holiday and have a great New Year celebration. Thanks.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. A lot of these people coming out with anger are a lot of the times coming from a place of hurt. So to just remember that, because I was remembering also, I think when you were talking, Samantha, about old relationships I had during high school and college. My parents had split up when I was in high school, and I remember just my mom screaming at my dad, her head off, and that's how I learned to treat my boyfriends. I would just lash out like in rages, and my mom would always say, "Why do you scream at your boyfriend so much?" I'm like, "I learned it from watching you," which she still doesn't get, and I'm not going to argue with her about it. So, and now I'm dating a new guy now, and she's like, "Don't, just remember not to yell at him." I'm like, "I'm not anymore. Those days are over. I got over that part." But it's funny, just the whole thing. But just, you never know where somebody is. Maybe they're a kid that just watched their parents fight, and they're lashing out on the internet and getting it out in that way. So yeah, just having compassion and just remembering that everyone is in a different place. That's how. Thanks for everybody who came out today. See you in the new year.
Yeah, I don't have an awful lot to add to that, but Catherine, kind of like you said, I used to let people really push me way, way too far, because I didn't like to argue. I didn't like to fight. And then until it come to the point where I would explode and I would blow it way out of proportion. And then they couldn't understand. Well, God, why are you so mad? Well, I'm so mad because I'm actually, like kicking the dog, so to speak, from all the times in the past, that this is built up, and you do have a breaking point, or at least most of us do, I think. But so yeah, I'm not the greatest person to give advice to anybody on that type of thing, just because for years and years I would go to any expense not to get into an argument, to the point of letting people walk all over me until I came to that point where I would explode and lash out, and like I said earlier, this is a learning experience. This is on-the-job training. It's called life, and you go through it one day at a time, and you learn it one day at a time, and you say, gosh, you know what, that didn't work very good. Maybe I need to change my approach here, and you see the color of my hair. I earned every one of those gray hairs, believe me. So, anyways, I'll turn it over to Sam to close it out.
That's a good point, Dan. And I was thinking about my husband when you were mentioning how you kind of just didn't want to be in an argument, and then you would just let it go, and then all of a sudden you just explode. And because of the dynamic of my relationship with my husband, of course, I'm the one that is very opinionated, and I'm the one that says this is how it's going to be, and this is that, and I'm the one that's always kind of controlling the conversation, and of course, I don't want to be in an argument either. And my husband doesn't want to be in an argument. We're both of the same kind of in the same boat, but I'm kind of more pushy in the conversation, and I've noticed that over the years. And because of it, the same thing would happen. He would let it go, and then all of a sudden he would fly off the handle and be like the whole world's coming to an end, and I'd be like, I'd be like, oh dang, And then of course, then we'd get into an argument or whatever, and I would be like, okay, when I was younger, I would just be mad, I'd be upset that this happened. I wouldn't take any responsibility for any of it myself. It's not my fault that happened, whatever. And but now that I'm older, I like I was saying before, is I work a little bit harder to let him express himself, and not let him, but you know what I'm saying, just shut myself up so that he has the chance to express himself, because I know that can happen. I mean, it's it's happened to me, it's happened to him. We've all experienced that in some way, shape, or form, where maybe we have not been allowed to express ourselves, and it's not so much allowed to as much as we repress ourselves because we don't want to get into it, and so I think that's hugely important, is to is just to remember, like we were kind of saying before, is that everybody has their own insights in the situation, and we've got to allow the other person to have their say, because if not, it's all gonna get bottled up, and then one day they're just gonna explode, and the whole world's gonna come to an end. And Sandy, I really liked what you were saying about giving people the benefit of the doubt that they're coming from the best place. Was that you, Sandy, or was that you, Catherine? I'm sorry, I don't want to. But either way, I remember somebody saying something about that a while back, or I was reading it somewhere, where they were saying, everybody does the best that they can with what they have from where they are in their lives. And if we always remember that, no matter what a person does or says or acts or whatever, so we've got to remember they're doing the best they can, and they may not be working on themselves in the way that you are. If you're on here and you're watching this hangout, you're obviously into some kind of personal development, and you may be working on yourself, and that's great, and you may be working to make yourself a better person, and the other people in your life that you may be having difficulties with, or people that you're coming across online, they may not be working on themselves, and that can be a big thing right there, is because you've got to recognize you've got a problem before you can start working on that problem. And there's so many people going through life that are just on autopilot, and they're just responding, and they're not taking responsibility for what's going on in their lives. But they're still doing the best that they can do from their perspective. And if we always keep that in mind, then then we're going to realize, we're going to have better relationships all the way around. So that's my thought on that, and I just want to thank everybody for hanging out with us today, and I want to thank each of you, Dan and Catherine and Sandy, for adding your thoughts and insights into our conversation. I just love hanging out with you guys, and for those of you who are out there in internet land watching this hangout, thank you so much, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say about our conversation as well. So if you haven't already added something to the discussion, feel free to add it on this page, or jump over to our Google Plus community, which is mindsetmasterycollective.com. You can add your thoughts and opinions and insights, and then just join into the conversation with us. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up for today. I think last week we talked about taking next week off for the new year, and that we're going to go ahead and reconvene again. Let me look at the date here. So we won't be doing our mastermind on the 3rd, so we'll meet you guys back here on the 10th at SaturdayMorningMastermind.com, and have an awesome and amazing, wonderful, happy new year, and I hope you had an awesome Christmas. I don't even think we mentioned that at the beginning, so I hope everybody's Christmas and Hanukkah and just everyone had a wonderful holiday, and we look forward to seeing you again in 2015. So with that, Catherine, go ahead and wrap it up for today. We'll see y'all later. Bye.
Bye-bye.